Hello, everyone, and welcome to our July 2025 edition of the Higher Education Tableau User Group. We're so glad that you could be here with us today. So we've got a pretty packed agenda for you, starting with our welcome and announcements. I'll invite you to come off mute in just a minute if you have anything you want to announce, any job postings you want to share, any events that you think we'd be interested in. You can also put them in the chat box if you are uncomfortable coming off mute, or you can share them in our Slack group. I think Roshni just put that link in the chat box. After that, we're going to have Meet a Community Member with Jen Snyder from Salve Regina University. You may remember her from her prep tips and tricks session not that long ago. And then that will be followed by a TC25 Encore, Total Eclipse of the Chart by Rob Kramer from Southwestern City School District. And following that, we'll have our typical wrap up and chat with a few breakout rooms. So that being said, does anyone have any announcements they'd like to come off mute and share? All right, hearing none, I will turn it over to James to talk about the Tableau Ambassador applications.
Yes, you have one more week to nominate yourself or another for the Tableau ambassadors. They have simplified the process this year. So in the past, you had to select whether the person should be a social, public, forum ambassador. This year, all those are categorized as community leaders. They still have separate categories for analytics, CRM, or CRM analytics and developers. And particularly for this group, that may be interesting, they have a separate ambassadors for teaching and for students. So if you know any faculty or staff who teach Tableau, definitely nominate them. Or if you know any students who are doing very well in Tableau, you may want to nominate them for an ambassador.
And we also want to announce a couple of events that are happening next week. Again, in the educator realm, there is an educator data camp, all for free, that you can join. I think it's a most of the day yet. It does start at 6 a.m. for those on the East Coast, but the sessions will be recorded. So if you can't make it, you will be able to get access to the recordings by joining the Tableau community Slack workspace and the educators topic in there. But there, it's geared for educators, learn how to use Tableau and meet other folks who are teaching Tableau or using Tableau in education. The other event is next Thursday. I'm like, what day is that again? Next Thursday, DataFam Live, exploring agentic analytics is happening in the middle of the afternoon, I believe. I don't know why we didn't put a time on here. I believe it's in the middle of the afternoon for folks on the East Coast. But go ahead and register at that URL. You'll learn all about Tableau Next, which has a lot of agentic options. So there's a concierge, there's a few other things that sort of help you just ask questions of your data or help your end users ask questions of the data. And I believe it is hands-on or hands-on-ish. It could be very wrong. And with that, Ginny, take it away.
All right, so we are welcoming back Jen Snyder from Salve Regina University as our Meet a Community Member this month. So Jen has been with Salve Regina for over 14 years. She's an assistant director of institutional research for the last 10 years, and her responsibilities have included everything from iPads and other compliance reporting to survey administration and data visualization and analytics. So like many others, Jen started working with data using Microsoft tools, including Access and Excel and Power Query. And then Jen found Tableau in 2019 and hasn't looked back. So she's been using Prep Builder for a few years now, and it has been a big game changer for her. So Jen, welcome. Why don't you start by telling us a little about yourself and describing your role and your team?
Well, hi, I'm Jen Snyder. I am afraid you've talked about most of my stuff already, but I will start out by saying that you all keep calling me the prep queen. Some of my favorite people call me Mimi. I have 3 grandchildren and love to share that information. But about my role, as you said, I've been at Salve for over 14 years. And along the way, I started in academic affairs, where I was doing a lot of surveys and course evaluations and lots of ad hoc reporting. After 5 years, I became the assistant director for IR, doubling the size of our IR team here. And we added in some compliance reporting, the iPads and college guide surveys, US News, that sort of thing. And we have since doubled our team again. We have now 4 people. It's a wonderful team that consists of our director, Anne Marie, who I believe is out there today. Me, of course, a data analyst, and our IR coordinator. And I'm so grateful for this team. It's great people to work with. With the larger team, thanks, Anne Marie. The workload is spread out, so I get to spend a lot more of my time on data visualization and more in-depth analysis. For example, one project would be retention. That's a big one around here.
Awesome. So other than retention, can you tell us a little bit more about what types of data you work with?
Absolutely. Primarily, I work with student data, but as I was thinking about this, I'm like, okay, the student data, anywhere from admissions, enrollment, graduation, of course, the retention and grad rates, course evaluation still, surveys still, all of that stuff. Also, course data, grades analysis. We pretty much do it all.
Yeah, it sounds like you cover all the bases there. So talk to us a little bit about how you use Tableau at work.
These days, I use Tableau for just about everything I do. I really feel like between Tableau and, yes, of course, Tableau Prep, I feel like it makes our life easier in so many ways. Some of the strategic dashboards that we've created in our office are the grad programs dashboard, which is admissions to graduation. And we'll talk more about that later. An academic department dashboard, student success, again, grades analysis. Those are the ones that are used externally, well, across campus. And then we have the projects that we've worked on that just make our lives easier here in institutional research. Really automating some of the processes that take forever and saving ourselves a lot of time to make room for more projects, which come constantly.
You are 100% right about that. Do you have a favorite Tableau project that you've worked on?
That's a tough one. Basically, anything that automates our processes and makes our lives easier. I did build a hiatus / withdrawal analysis. It started as a request from their business office, the bursar's office, and they wanted to basically know when during the semester are students leaving, because they wanted to look into how much tuition had to be refunded. And so I was able to create a dashboard to show them that sort of thing. And then it just grew into a larger analysis for hiatus. And yes, I was not going to call it my favorite project, but one that probably has challenged me the most, and that is FVT-GE.
Yeah, I was working on that one as well. And Tableau,
and it's coming around again. I've started, that's what I worked on today.
Oh, yes. Um, I think you, or we talked about in your bio how long you've been using Tableau, but how did you learn how to use it?
Various ways, but I have to give a huge shout out to Andy Kriebel. Um, I think it started with Makeover Monday. So between his Watch Me Viz and Eva Murray's Viz reviews, I got a lot out of that. The Flurridge twins, of course. But I also have to say thank you because I was one of the winners of a year-long e-learning, Tableau e-learning, and I've really utilized that. And of course, Tubbs.
That is fantastic. I'm glad that you got a lot of good use out of that.
I did, definitely.
So, do you have a favorite Tableau feature?
Can I say Tableau Prep?
Sure can.
Prep is probably my favorite resource. Um, as far as functionality within Tableau, I would say dynamic zone visibility, sets and parameters top the list. But yeah, Tableau Prep has been a lifesaver for me.
All good things. What is something you would like to learn more about in Tableau?
Everything. I feel like it's such a huge resource that, and it's so powerful that I only know a little bit of it. So I definitely want to learn more.
And there's
And
always
I'm a lifelong learner, so I never want to stop learning.
I'm with you right there. What is one thing you wish you could go back in time and tell Tableau newbie you?
Yeah, I would say don't be shy. I'm very much an introvert, so karaoke, forget about it. You can barely get me to talk in public, never mind sing. But yeah, don't be shy, be more involved, put more out on Tableau Public. I haven't used Tableau Public very much. I've got a few projects out there, but I always feel like it's not quite there yet to publish it. So I want to do more of that.
That's really good advice. And I think that you have done a really great job. You've presented at HETUG now. You've come on as Meet a Community member. So
I am trying to get myself out of my box.
yeah, so maybe advice you could offer to all the other HETUG people here is if you're, shy and don't like to speak in public, it's not bad doing it for HETUG because we're a great group, right?
Absolutely. That's why I did it. Because I know it's a safe space.
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah.
So do you ever use Tableau outside of work? I know you mentioned Tableau Public, and if
Yeah, I not as much as I would like. Um, I have done a few data for good projects, and that is pretty meaningful to me. I haven't done any in a while, but I've also done a little bit of consulting on the side, but I think that's kind of considered work too. I'd like to do more of my own personal things like my Goodreads. I'd love to get that into a Tableau or some mountain hiking and things like that.
yeah, that's a great idea. I'd like to do some Goodreads business as well.
Yeah,
All right, is there anything else you'd like to share before we go into the dashboard spotlight?
I think that covers everything.
All right. Well, I will say that your dashboard spotlight is a little bit less about a dashboard, a little bit more about the Tableau prep, right?
Right. I am once again sticking with the prep theme. Um, when you first said, you've got to give me a dashboard to highlight, and I just didn't know. I'm like, how am I going to find something that I can really talk about that's inspired me? And then we had Analytics Day, or you had Analytics Day, you all. And Sarah Matthews from Cincinnati,
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, um, I was truly inspired by this. As I mentioned previously, I created a grad programs dashboard, And it has been very well received, which I'm very grateful for because of the work that goes into it. But I know that it can be better. I created it early on in my Tableau life. And just when I saw her presentation, it really prompted me to think differently about the whole process of setting up a dashboard. So, and clearly her workflow is shown on the screen now. If you go to the next slide, these dashboards get data from so many disparate sources that you really have to work to get them to play nice together. And that's pretty much the story of our life here. All the dashboards that we create fall under that category. But I loved how she organized the different stages or life in the life cycle of a student and focused on each one individually and then union them together so that it just all became one data source. And if you go to the Tableau Prep page, the next slide, this is mind-blowing, right? It's got so much stuff and it deals with each area individually, breaking it all down into the metrics for each area and unioning it together to give a very streamlined data source for the dashboard itself.
So were you able to take this back and use it to improve your existing dashboard, or is that the plan?
Yeah, that is the plan. I haven't been able to do it yet because there's always a new project, so it's hard to go back to the old projects and make them what we want them to be, at least for me. In fact, just this morning, I learned about a new project coming down the pike for us that I am going to start with this kind of format to try to make it happen. So
excellent.
So I will be putting it to use.
Well, that is fantastic. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about your spotlight?
If you have access to the recorded videos from Analytics Day, I highly recommend go out and listen to hers again. She was great. Sarah Matthews.
And I can definitely share the link to that Google folder with all of the presentations and presentation materials and including the full version of this. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. We really appreciate it. And if anyone else is interested in being a META community member in the future, you can fill out an interest form and let us know. And I guess I'll turn it over to, I think, Roshni to introduce our next presenter.
So I am really excited about this next presentation. So back in, I want to say it was December, we had this sort of office hours session where folks in higher ed, from the higher ed TUG, the CCC TUG, the K through 12 TUG, and other education TUGs, we were just like, hey, let's talk about potential presentations you might want to put in you might want to propose for a Tableau conference. And so when Rob talked about putting in this proposal, I was like, heck yes, let's like map and set action. And this sounds just really awesome, right? So I saw the title a few months later on the Tableau conference page, and I was like, hells yes, like this is going to be awesome. It was also the best session title of all of TC25. And then, I went and actually saw the presentation, and Rob knocked it out of the park. Like I was speechless outside of my like cheering from the audience. And my mind immediately went to all the different ways that the example that Rob's going to show us can be applied across education in mapping situations like fundraiser regions or admissions visit planning, and even to non-mapping situations like recategorizing funds or like reclassifying projects, anything that involves what if scenarios. Like Rob's presentation hits on it a little bit. And every now and then I get a little bit restless and I dream of something wild about how I can apply this presentation. So Without me blathering more, let me introduce you to Rob Kramer. He's the Data Systems and EMIS Coordinator for Southwestern City Schools in Grove City, Ohio. He's worked in their data center for 16 years, and they've utilized Tableau there for 9 years. And Rob, there's nothing more I can say, so take it away with a total eclipse of the chart.
Thank you, Roshni. Well, I hope I can live up to the hype. So I appreciate that. It was very kind. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Take over here. All right. There we go. And Roshni, you can see that, right?
Yep, you're good to go.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, as Roshni said, this is an encore presentation on the school redistricting dashboards with its punny name of Total Eclipse of the Chart that I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to present at the Tableau conference earlier this year, back in April. So there we go. Sorry. My name, as Roshni said, my name is Robert Kramer. I am the Data Systems and EMIS Coordinator at Southwestern City Schools in Grove City, Ohio. EMIS is the acronym basically for State Reporting System in Ohio. I am an active member of the National K-12 HETUG. If you're not in the K-12 EDU space, you're definitely welcome to join. Just as Roshni's open and Jenny's open to having for those of us from K-12, we're happy to have higher ed folks in ours. And just a few fun facts about me. I'm now in the final year of my second term on city council for the city of Obetz. I enjoy playing in our city pickleball leagues to stay in shape. I love going down to Cincinnati. I heard someone reference Cincinnati earlier to go see the Reds and especially Bengals games. And I am also the 5-time Obetz Daddy-Daughter Dance Limbo champion. So my younger daughter is very proud of me on that every year. And so here's our agenda for the session. First, we're going to talk about how Tableau got its start at Southwestern City Schools. We need to talk about our origin story. We'll go over just a quick sampling of dashboards that we've created over the nearly decade that we've utilized Tableau, just to kind of familiarize you guys with what we do here with it. Next, we'll talk about the specific project that led to the creation of these dashboards to start with. And then we'll cover the enhancements that we made to the first project. And finally, we'll bring it all together with SQL, because I love SQL and we love it here at Southwestern. We do a lot with it. So I enjoy a good quote at the beginning of presentations, and I've always liked this one. I am told there are people who do not care for maps, and I find that hard to believe. And that is Robert Louis Stevenson, the author of Treasure Island, and I sure couldn't agree more with him, because maps are incredible. So let's first talk about our school district's journey into Tableau. We are one of the larger school districts here at Southwestern, fifth largest in the state of Ohio, but we're large both physically and in terms of student population both. Our district covers 119 square miles over much of the southwestern quadrant of Franklin County. We're based out of Grove City, but we cover numerous municipalities and townships, including a sizable portion of the city of Columbus. We have approximately 22,000 students, pre-K to 12, across 34 school buildings. That involves 16 elementary schools, 5 intermediate schools, 5 middle schools, 4 high schools. We have our own career academy, like our own JBS Tech Center, just for our district. And when our career tech juniors and seniors attend all day, they actually go attend all day there for all of their classes, including their core classes. We're able to teach everything there. So not just those career tech courses, but math, English, everything. We have an alternative school. We have a preschool and a Head Start center. So we definitely have a need for handling large amounts of data here. Our student information system is Infinite Campus. We just completed our 13th school year on Infinite Campus. We've been very happy with everything that campus has delivered to date. And they've always shown to have a very good appreciation for data and ensuring our access to it. You kind of get that too when the founder was a programmer. So it's a bit of a spirit animal there. So we've also been handling data in Crystal Reports since 2005, far predating Infinite Campus here and Tableau, obviously. We still use it today because if your goal is a form like layout or a spreadsheet, Crystal Reports is still a good option. But then in 2016, Tableau came along here, and it has slowly but dramatically changed how we do business at Southwestern. In 2015, the curriculum department approached us about a data warehouse. They wanted to get a better handle on student data and understand it better. They didn't know exactly what they wanted or really what a data warehouse was actually. So, but of course, that means we didn't know we were looking for it. They didn't know we don't know. We all sat through a lot of presentations to figure that out, some decent enough, some not so much. But we finally heard about Tableau and how custom computer specialists, a partner of Infinite Campus, had developed their DataViz API product to integrate Tableau into Infinite Campus. It was actually just a small article in the Infinite Campus Yearly magazine that we had noticed. The integration between Tableau and Infinite Campus is two-way, so there is data communication going in both directions. It's so well integrated that users wouldn't even know they're using a separate product if we didn't want them to. But of course we do. We love Tableau. We tell them it's Tableau, it's labeled Tableau, and we want them to know and use it and love it. Dashboards are displayed within the Infinite Campus browser window. It's browser-based. There's no separate login. Access to each dashboard is actually controlled through Infinite Campus's permissions, just like any other tool right of Infinite Campus. The employee groups that currently have access to Tableau at Southwestern, it's the district office, the school front offices, and math and literacy coaches. There hasn't been a big use for it yet in the hands of individual teachers, since they typically don't dig into big data as much. Year and school rights must be inherited through access in the SIS, so that a school level dashboard will only run for you if you have access to that school. A district level dashboard is only granted to specific users, usually in the district office. The speed is just amazing, since it utilizes Infinite Campus's own data warehouse product. I mean, it doesn't have to, right? I mean, we can pull from anywhere else too, of course, even the live database. And we do for a few of them where we need that live data and speed maybe isn't quite as important, or we just keep the dashboard lean. Our data warehouse is automatically updated with the latest data nightly, so all data is no more than 1 day old. And as with many data warehouses, for our ETL process, we create views to be flattened into tables overnight, which can really allow us to have huge amounts of data that can be accessed at great speeds within Tableau, or even other products if desired. It's not exclusive to Tableau, that data warehouse. Custom computer specialists even provided several dozen canned dashboards to get us started in learning Tableau through modifying and reverse engineering some of these dashboards. They're there for us to learn. So we definitely had our share of challenges when we initially started ramping up with Tableau. When we first adopted Tableau, we only had 2 employees available for any development, and to be honest, our plates were already pretty full. So it was difficult not just to find the time to develop dashboards, but to even learn how to develop them. It's slow going in the beginning. We all remember those days. And so how do you solve that? Well, like many times, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. We had another employee within the department retire and snagged a great new hire, freeing up more of my time to focus on dashboard development. Another set of issues that we faced, though, was expectations. In addition to the initial problem of time, we had to make sure administration understood what Tableau was and what it wasn't. Some spoke of Tableau essentially being magic. While it is really amazing, we had to explain that it does what it does because we've told it to. It's still a tool, just like anything else, just admittedly a super cool one. Some people wanted a single dashboard to be the be-all, end-all, where all data could be accessed if drilled down enough. So we had to bring them back a little bit, explaining that, how, while we can certainly bring some data together into single dashboards, there will be different dashboards to tackle different questions. So we had to dodge scope creep several times in the beginning. We had to tease out details of what people were looking for sometimes. They might say, I want a behavior dashboard. Well, that's great. What would you like on this dashboard? What type of data would you like to look at? And most importantly, what is the question you're trying to answer? Whenever we're developing dashboards, reports, whatever, that needs to be the first question that our team asks someone is, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to find out? On top of that, with limited human resources, prioritization was an issue because development was, like I said, it was slow in the beginning. So which projects should get priority? The answer to everyone's answer is theirs, right? So everyone's as important in their own world. But ultimately, this culminated in the establishment of monthly Tableau update meetings. Here, our team can discuss with the deputy superintendent, curriculum, and assessment coordinator on our accomplishments in the past month, new requests that have come in or enhancements, and what prioritization they want to give them, and the logistics of future rollouts. Those meetings have proven to be invaluable to keep everyone on the same page, and over 9 years later, we still hold those meetings monthly to this day. So here is Tableau in Infinite Campus. Just a showing a simple Ohio school district map dashboard. Like so many products these days, as I said earlier, Infinite Campus is browser-based. On the left is Infinite Campus's index navigation. It's within that navigation that we access our Tableau dashboards. It's a hierarchical structure, so sorting the dashboards into what are essentially folders makes finding the dashboards you want easier. For those of you not in the K-12 realm, I think it is a fair question of what all a school district does with data. What would they even do with that? What do we have a need to analyze? So before we start digging into our big redistricting project, I wanted to look at a few other quick examples of some K-12 dashboards we've created on topics that many of you may be familiar with to help familiarize you guys all a little bit with what we do in Infinite Campus and with data in general. So we do keep a lot of data, including grades, standardized test scores, student attendance, behavior, household information, addressing, demographics, enrollment information, medical data, special education, gifted. It just keeps going. And one more thing I do want to say, actually, just a quick note. And while the aggregated data that you'll see in these dashboards is real, I want to stress that the individual student and teacher data is anonymized. And as you'll see, they have fake names and randomized IDs. And there's a couple where I just blacked it out where it was easier to do it that way. It wasn't relevant to the dashboard. So here's the first one. In most states, we all took some kind of tests in order to graduate high school. From 2018 to 2022, Ohio utilized graduation points, and in this dashboard, it helped our schools in tracking how many students were progressing in this. Beginning with the class of 2023, Ohio moved to permanent graduation requirements, where students demonstrate competency and readiness through tests and seals that they earn. And I'm just kind of going quick through here because this isn't the bulk of the presentation, just to give you guys a good idea of what we do here. This dashboard helps us track what percentage of parents have filled out their students' emergency medical information online. And don't worry, this was from very early in the year. January, not that early. We should have had higher numbers by then, but we actually got to much higher numbers this year on that. We made some progress in that. I can assure you it was around 80% filled out this past year. And this dashboard compares AP scores to course grades, including utilizing a bubble chart. For any of you parents whose kids take iReady, this can help track growth along with state test results and predictions and comparing those results with those predictions. Here we utilized a shapefile from the state of all school districts. The state requires us to report all admissions and withdrawals of our students along with the school district that they're coming from or going to. And this heat map shows how many net students that we gained or lost from a given district in the school year. So again, this is just a few quick examples of what we've done with Tableau and Infinite Campus. And we honestly have about 100 dashboards or a little more. But this is just a few heavy hitters to give you a quick overview. So let's talk about addresses and school boundaries and how they're handled in our student information system. I think this is important background information for the project. So when we started with Infinite Campus in 2012, we worked with the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission to help ensure that every address within our school boundaries, which is around 65,000, within all of Franklin County and a 10-mile radius of Franklin County, which is around 700,000, were loaded into Infinite Campus. That means every address in Infinite Campus is its own independent data point, its own row in the address table. Allows us to be very specific in what we do. In addition to the typical postal address data that you see here, Infinite Campus supports latitude and longitude, which is of course essential for mapping points in Tableau. We also created custom elements in addresses, including municipality, township, apartment complex or mobile home park, and even parcel ID, which that one gives you the keys to the kingdom when you're talking about county auditor data. On the right is our school boundaries in Infinite Campus. Our district has 4 school levels: elementary, intermediate, middle, and high school. Campus not only supports these 4 levels, but also a history of former school boundaries for a given address. You can see that at the bottom there. So each school boundary is also one row in the school boundary table in the data set. So with all of our addresses geocoded, it allows us to plot maps in Tableau like this one. Here, every single address in SWCS, whether or not any students actually live there. So every address is represented here. You may see the word catchment on here. So what is a catchment? A catchment is a unique combination of schools. So it's one elementary, one intermediate, one middle, one high that student at a given address could naturally attend in succession. We currently have 37 unique catchments, each one represented by a distinct color on this dashboard. This was my first attempt at just a very early proof of concept in having both addresses as well as and having both address points as well as shapefile geometries placed on the same dashboard. I mean, it wasn't particularly useful or pretty, actually. It was an early one, but it allowed me to show to administration some ideas for what we could potentially build in the future. And then just such a project came along. So in the fall of 2018, voters approved a bond with the help of state funding to rebuild 4 of our aging middle schools and provide renovation and expansion of our 5th middle school. So if the schools are being rebuilt one-to-one, then why is there a need to redistrict? Well, 2 of the middle schools were moving for various logistical reasons, and 1 of the middle schools was an old high school. So while 4 of the middle schools were increasing in capacity, Pleasant View Middle School, the one that was formerly a high school from decades ago, was actually decreasing in capacity by over 150 students. So the charge from administration was to redistrict 130 students from Pleasant View Middle School to Brook Park Middle School and 60 students from Pleasant View Middle School to Norton Middle School. In addition to making the two school moves make sense with the boundaries. You put that all together and you end up with a definite need to redistrict, right? So what you see here, these are exactly the charts that we were trying to eclipse, and there's where the session name came from. These charts are from a previous redistricting project with our elementary schools back in the early 2010s. The way this worked is that we would send over a bunch of student grade level and address data to a GIS house that we contracted with. We would give them guidelines for what we were looking for. Then they would usually give us 2 to 3 options on how to redistrict. With all of these charts associated with them. And don't get me wrong, you know, they were great to work with and gave us some good options. But if we had any feedback, and of course we're going to, then each time we would communicate, we had to just kind of lob it over the fence and wait for a few weeks while they reworked the process. It would extend the process, and we couldn't get quite as detail-oriented as we would have liked. If we could do this in-house, then we could pull together all the stakeholders in a meeting, go over drafts, and then live on the spot tell them what the impact of a change would be, not just for next school year, but subsequent school years as well. This was the dream. This is what my director and I were able to convince administration to give us the opportunity to attempt to pull off, turning Tableau into even more than dashboards, but a functional tool. I'm going to apologize now. There are some gnarly storms outside my window, so hopefully you'll just hear a little thunder and we won't lose any power or internet, but it is coming in now. So this is the Tableau dashboard that we developed. But how do you test and analyze different redistricting options? This was, for me at least, the crux of the project and was the hardest issue to work through. Current boundaries are easy. They're stored in the database. We have them. We know them. Redistricted boundaries are not stored in the database. How do you allow for easy movement from one hypothetical boundary to another? The answer, as it turns out, is sets. I heard a reference to that earlier. I think it was Jen said she likes sets, so that's great because we're going to talk about sets. We tried many different ideas, but this is the only one that gave us that needed flexibility. We just had to initially set up the 5 sets to be the same as the current catchments. Then we could change them and test them. The reason for 2 maps on here was actually due to a limitation at the time in Tableau where you couldn't update a set's members on a worksheet that itself was affected by the changes to the set membership. And that is no longer a limitation now. But at the time it was, so that's what we're looking at here. The map on the left represents all district addresses and our now former middle school boundaries. This is our workspace. Current and new school locations are represented by the letters on the map. The map on the right represents the resulting map from our redistricting efforts. So this is our results map. And this map looks thinner because at the moment it's filtered to only show addresses with current K-8 students. This gives us 2 very different but equally important perspectives of our district map and population distribution. To redistrict a neighborhood on the left map, you can highlight a neighborhood and select to remove it from one set a middle school boundary. Once removed, then select to add it to the other set, a different middle school boundary, and that's it. You've just created a new scenario to examine. To examine the scenario a little more closely, though, you can see how it would affect this year's student numbers with the bar graphs in the middle of the screen. Each school has two graphs, one representing the 7th and 8th grade student numbers for the current boundary and one for the redistricted boundary. The gray reference lines represent building capacities. Both old and new capacities are accounted for in their respective bar graphs. The heat map style table at the bottom shows overall numbers redistricted. You can hover over any of the address points for more details and over any of the graphs for more detailed viz in tooltips. In all, there's 15 worksheets comprising this dashboard, including the viz in tooltips. So how long does this process take? Less than 1 minute. So what we're going to do here is on the left-hand side, we're going to highlight a neighborhood that's currently in Norton Middle School. That's old. And then we're going to remove that from Norton Middle School, remove it from the set, right? And watch the right-hand side here. The result, that's going to change from orange to gray to indicate that it is now undistricted. We took it out of Norton, right? Well, what are we going to put it in? So now we're going to add it into Pleasant View Middle School. It's now going to leave the Norton Middle School set. Or sorry, we already left the Norton. It's now going to go from undistricted to redistricted. And now it's green. And now we've moved that. And the numbers will demonstrate that as well. Those numbers changed there at the bottom when we did that. All right. Okay. So one of the important things about this process is not to be short-sighted. When we redistrict for the current year, we need to be sure that this is sustainable at the lower grade as the lower grade levels matriculate into the middle schools. So this video tours how we can review the results after we've attempted a redistricting. So we're going to mouse over Brook Park. Actually, the capacities first. You can see the current capacity of 546. Then, or of 822, sorry. Then we're going to mouse over and see there's the current years and there's future years under redistricted. That kind of shows there wasn't a big change in that. Everything seemed to be staying stable throughout the years. There's Jackson one. We really didn't redistrict much, but it does show it's dropping off a little in the future. Norton was staying steady. Norton's going to continue to stay steady. Pleasant View, it's dropping off a little over the years, and it's still going to continue to drop off a little over the years. So that can afford us to redistrict a few more people currently, knowing that we won't have as many in the future, which is important because we decided to do just that. Spoiler alerts. And then over here you can see individual redistricts like that as Pleasant View kids that were specifically redistricted to Brook Park, and you can see that those were there are a lot now, but they're going to reduce a little over the years as that goes on. Okay. So this was the original map. You can see where the 5 current middle schools are, denoted by the single letters, while the new ones have an N in front of them. The only 2 moving being Pleasant View and Brook Park. This was the result of our first attempt at redistricting. The main goals were to ensure that when we redistricted the appropriate number of students from Pleasant View to Brook Park and Norton, that the boundaries make sense with the new school locations and attempt to follow boundary lines of other levels so that we don't create any new catchments, preferably reducing the number of catchments. At the time, we had 38 catchments, and we were able to bring that number down to 37 with this option. The idea here was with Brook Park's new building being to the south of Pleasant View's new building to pull from the rural south of Pleasant View. For Norton, we pulled from the part of Pleasant View closest to Norton, much more densely populated. And this is actually another Tableau dashboard. This was created utilizing the Franklin County Auditor's shapefile of all the parcels in our district and then seeded with the results from our redistricting efforts. In option 2, with Brook Park also being to the east of Pleasant View, we instead pulled from points east of the new Pleasant View building. For Norton, we pulled from the rural northwest part of Pleasant View, and this also would have aided in unifying 2 catchments. In the end, after community input and staff input, we took elements from both options. With regards to moving students from Pleasant View to Brook Park, we decided on all redistricting from option 2, along with one neighborhood from option 1, opting to move it to unify it with an adjacent neighborhood. And we utilized both options 1 and 2 for the Pleasant View to Norton students. So we even ended up moving a few more students than originally anticipated, which we were comfortable with, as we saw those numbers were going to come down a little bit over the years. Once finalized, this is the map that was officially released to the public. We did end up submitting our redistricting information to our GIS house in order to create this map to release to the public both online and for a giant print at a Board of Education meeting. In the final step, then, once approved by the Board of Education, I extracted the address IDs from the dashboard and created a SQL script to implement the updates in our Infinite Campus database. We definitely had a happy ending with this project, and the rollout, both technically and publicly, went very smoothly. Even some favorable articles in the local newspaper, and if you can win with the press, you're probably doing something right, really. But now we wanted to look to the future and making this project not just a one-off, but a tool to be able to continuously monitor our district boundaries and enrollment numbers. So after the middle school redistricting, our district now has 37 catchments. This is honestly still too many. Students can be together at one level, apart at the next, and split up again. Long term, this number would ideally be much lower, and we can do better. In the time since the middle school redistricting, the need has arisen where we want to look at future enrollment numbers for schools to see if there could be trouble ahead. Could a school's enrollment be set up to drop off or increase considerably in the coming years? Or is this just a blip in student numbers for 1 year? And if I was going to build a dashboard to help identify these trends for the entire district, not just middle schools, then I'm going to build this bigger and better dashboard from lessons previously learned, utilizing new updates from Tableau and offering more options to the user to color and filter results such as municipality, township, previous redistrictings, apartment complexes, and mobile home parks to ensure we don't split those on accident. So here it is, our new and improved dashboard for enrollment planning and, if necessary, redistricting. On the left-hand side of the dashboard, we have the current enrollment numbers for each of our schools, which are color-coded by level, with our elementary schools in red, intermediate schools in green, middle schools in blue, and high schools in orange. The middle of our dashboard is our workspace map, where we can make the changes and, with those improvements to Tableau, observe the changes as well in that one single map. Helped us get a lot of real estate back to only have one map. The top rows are to control the coloring options and different filters. And finally, on the right-hand side is where we can monitor the counts of addresses and current students per catchment, as well as the total catchment count at the top as we work to redistrict and attempt to reduce that catchment count at the top of the screen. So now let's take a tour and see the dashboard in action. So we can mouse over here Central Crossing and see how many students are currently boundaried at Central Crossing, as well as the upcoming grade levels. We talked about how important that was. When you mouse over the gray, that shows you the current ones. The color represents redistricted. We haven't redistricted anything yet, right? And the gray represents current. The brown line, that's the reference line for the capacity of the building. And we talked about our Career Academy earlier, and at the very bottom, you can see that number is 0 for SWCA because at the moment we're counting them at our home high schools. But as you just saw by changing that, now we can say, you know what, let's count the Career Academy students back at the Career Academy, not their home high schools. I mean, that is where they graduate from, is their home high school, but at the Career Academy, that's where they're physically sitting. That's where they take up space, and that's important when you're talking about building capacity. Remember, they spend all day at the Career Academy. And rather than just a yes or no, we put percentages because we thought, well, that's pretty important. What if we know it's going to expand? And that was actually how this came up. They said, well, we're going to expand by 20%. So we can put it at 120 and expect a few more students to be going there in future years and account for that. And also when you mouse over the Career Academy, you get a Viz and tooltip where you can see how many kids are coming from each building and each grade level at those buildings, because it varies greatly by the schools, as you can see. Again, there's the capacity of our Career Academy. So here you can see different coloring options. We wanted to have a lot. You can see many different ways to color things by municipality, township, current boundaries. Right now it's colored by their current elementary boundary, or I'm sorry, their redistricted elementary boundary. There's different grade levels where you can actually say, I want to include, right now we have every address, but maybe you only want to include ones with students in them right now. That'll thin it out a lot, but it gives you a better representation. Well, Kroger is important. No one lives at Kroger, but it's on the map. So here you can filter by just maybe an individual catchment if you wanted to really examine one that was funky and it didn't make sense. You can filter by municipality here. You can filter by township and county. We actually do have a very small sliver that goes down into Pickaway County at the very bottom. Apartment complexes, mobile home parks. Again, we have over 100. We have like 120 in our district. So we could look at just one in particular or a handful if we want to there. We could also filter by previous elementary redistricts, as in how many times has it already been redistricted in the past. Same with middle schools. Maybe you're just like, I can't put them through another one. You want to avoid that. And that's what's been redistricted. So let's look at this here. Now we're going to step through this. So right here, we're going to attempt to redistrict from Alton Hall to Prairie Lincoln. We are going to remove that same neighborhood from Alton Hall. Now I will say with more capability in here, it takes a little bit longer. Instead of 10 seconds, it takes closer to 30. So through the magic of television, I'm going to fast forward. We can now see that it is undistricted. Let me just back up a little bit. I apologize. I went too far ahead. So now you can see it changes from blue to gray, kind of like the other one, where it is now undistricted. So there you can see information on an individual address point. Now we're going to take that same area and we're going to add it to Prairie Lincoln, the red one. So once again, we're going to fast forward 30 seconds here. Hopefully I can count a little better this time. There we go. Perfect. And it changes to red. So that has now moved from Alton Hall to Prairie Lincoln by changing the set. Up here, now you can mouse, if you remember that little grid at the bottom, those are now Viz and tooltips. So you can see there's 71 students that we redistricted from Alton Hall to Prairie Lincoln. You can do the same for intermediate, middle, and high. We didn't redistrict those, so they didn't do anything. They're not exciting, but just to show that we did account for that. They're all listed on here. High school takes just a couple more seconds because we have the Career Academy in there. It's another level of calculations. There we go. The projected school year, so you can change what is showing here at the time. Right now we're looking at 23-24, which was the current school year at the time. And as we look at this here, check this out. Alton Hall, that red is now lower. The gray is a background bar graph that shows the current. So that's not going to move, right? But the red represents what it has been redistricted to. You can see for Alton Hall, it shrank. For Prairie Lincoln, it grew. That makes sense. That's what we did, right? And then you can mouse over and see what all the different grade levels are. It kind of gives you the future for elementary because, of course, we don't know what's coming up from the pre-K, but you can see history and see if there's a trend. I think that's important, at least to see the upper levels for that. Same thing with Prairie Lincoln. You can see what that's doing at individual grade levels, and it's a very light grade 3 there that year. Also, that was because that was the COVID kindergartners. Here you can see also you can filter by those that have already been redistricted with this attempt if you want to. Only elementary, so that's the only one that had a yes. And then finally over here on the right hand side, you can see there's the grade levels in that catchment and how many students are in there. So you may see at the bottom that you may see at the bottom that there are a lot of worksheets utilized on this dashboard, 85 in total, which is a lot. It was not my goal to begin with. But part of why we have so many is that each one of these bar graphs is its own worksheet, along with having its own Viz and tooltip. So why would we do that, right? It turns out that when you have 30 sets, each with anywhere from hundreds to over 10,000 members, and you want to utilize multiple filters, that starts to tax Tableau, especially when all 31 schools are represented in one large set of bar graphs. If you set it up that way, Tableau has to re-render the entire worksheet, and that took minutes. But if we split each school out to its own worksheet, each bar graph for each school, then it only has to re-render the one sheet that's been affected, which it can do in about 30 seconds. And something that I made sure to highlight at the Tableau conference is the concept that this is not a far leap either from school district boundaries to things like sales territory when trying to do these future what if we move this scenarios. And I'm sure that there are many regional territories, Roshni spoke about earlier, such as recruitment and fundraising that would be very applicable to colleges and universities. So, like any organization with large databases, we lean heavily on SQL to help make possible all of the things in Tableau that you've seen here today. So let's start by talking about the data source setup. And that's it. There it is. It's a single table. Sometimes it makes sense to write the SQL to create a single view that gets flattened into a single table in a data warehouse overnight. And this is one of those times. That's how we were able to get that level of speed out of the dashboard that you just saw. We just really want Tableau to do what it's best at, rendering the dashboard. We've left the heavy lifting to SQL to occur a single time overnight for that fast dashboard with near real-time data. In these two redistricting dashboards that you've seen here today, these are actually the only lone examples where we even had to utilize Tableau's functionality of creating a hyper extract. With as much as we're trying to do here, we needed to pull from an extract from the data warehouse to function for even greater speed gains. And so now for what I think is the coolest part of these dashboards. So imagine that you're now done redistricting your school district in Tableau. You've got those dashboards, you're able to do this. You've spent all kinds of time doing this. You've gone through all the processes and meetings, and you're there. You're done. Now what? How do you get all of those changes into your student information system? Our results are kind of trapped in the dashboard, right? Once again, like the answer to so many of life's problems, a SQL script would be nice. But how do we get that? We have created a series of Tableau calculations to actually generate the necessary SQL script to load every single school boundary change with a user-selected effective date at the top of the dashboard into Infinite Campus. This even includes end date in the old school boundaries. So we're going to navigate to the other dashboard. If you notice, there was two, right? This is the only purpose for that second dashboard. And in 30 seconds, again, we're going to fast forward a little bit. In about 30 seconds, it's going to generate the SQL from whatever it is you have done in that dashboard, however many days or weeks you spent doing that. Once you're done, you can come here and it has just generated the SQL. So you just want to copy out the text, paste it into Microsoft SQL Server. So we're going to copy it out. Then you can paste it in Microsoft SQL Server. You execute it, and that's it. You've just redistricted your entire school district. A new tool in our arsenal, created using Tableau, and a bit of SQL. So thank you so much for all of you for coming to the Higher Ed Tug today and my presentation. I hope that everyone was able to take away some ideas on how to think a bit differently with Tableau and utilize it not just for data analytics, but also as a tool in your toolbox. We utilize SQL at some level in most of our Tableau projects, and it has proven to be very powerful in our efforts for dashboard efficiency. Again, we love to share, so here's my information. We can share dashboard layout, SQL code, or just about anything else that you've seen today, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
So we have one from Jenny. How much training did it take for your end users to be able to do this redistricting on their own?
Great question. None, because our department handled it and we kind of guided them through it. It was not one that was rolled out to all of our end users to be able to do on their own. I think redistricting is a four-letter word in most school districts, and that is not something that you crowdsource. So and of course the higher ups aren't going to really dig into that. So we had work sessions really, and I kind of guided them through that. And also then they kind of gave me marching orders to go back and do it. So unfortunately, while many of our dashboards, as you saw in Infinite Campus, are out there for our users to use and integrate with one, this is not one. It was just a different beast.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think that experience sort of speaks to the idea of data analysts, Tableau developers, not just being someone behind the scenes doing the work, but actually like that interaction with your end users and walking them through, here's what you can do, here's the business process. Like, let's walk through it together and understand it and actually make these decisions together. Like, it's a really great way to sort of kind of push forward that idea that, yeah, we're thought partners, we're collaborative partners. We're not just go code monkey this in the corner.
Yes.
And I love that. But then at the same time, you're like providing that, the tools for the code monkey to go get that SQL out. We've done a couple of things on the advancement side here at MIT that were similar. It was just, we need something for us to like look and play with this data, and then we need to actually do something real with it. We need to get it back into the database, and that ability to sort of create a way to export the SQL script. Just it's such an easy thing to build in. It doesn't require an API to do write back or anything fancy like that. It's just like, here's some code. We know how to write SQL, or many of us do. Like, let's just write it and get the data back in. This was a really great, like, again, it totally eclipsed every other session I went to at TC. Even the one with the Muppet. So, that.
Say Roshni's selling herself short just a little bit here with her presentation too. That was very outstanding to see. I loved it. It was very, very entertaining and educational. It made me think about some stuff too about accessibility. So, but yeah, and it's interesting you say that about write back, because that came up when I did an encore presentation for the K-12 TUG that I referenced earlier, and that was a question someone said. Well, why don't you just do write back? And to your point, Roshni, like it's going to be more to set up, and when we just so rarely do that. Like we talked about, most of them are ones just end users use. They're going to dive into the data for themselves. It's most of the dashboards we do aren't a tool, and that's what I thought was unique about this, was that it didn't fit the mold of what we typically do, and this just kind of gives us an easier solution to write it back. And if you're doing it all the time, certainly you'd want to do something like a write back. But when it's this is only the end product, we're going to run that code one time, right?
Yeah.
So it's not I think it's not a big deal to do it that way. Sometimes the easier solution is better than the elegant one, although I think it works well enough. So
anyway, this was awesome. Thank you so much. I'm still like, I was giddy when we were doing our tech check or before the meeting. I was like so giddy about this presentation. Still very, very giddy. You did an amazing job, Rob, both at TC and here, and pretty much every time you've given this presentation. So thank you so much for doing this. And I hope you guys in the audience, like you've heard, you got some ideas of how you might be able to use Tableau features that you may not have been thinking about for something like this, some of this what if scenario analysis. And again, partnering with the end users of your data, or the business process owners, or whoever out sort of on the non-data side to make change happen collaboratively. Anyway, so yeah, thank you, Rob. I'm gonna turn this over to, actually I'm gonna steal the screen share.
Yep, go for it. Put it down here.
There we go.
Perfect.
There we go. So I'm going to turn this over to James, if you want to take it away, James.
Okay. So we have a survey out, so let's go ahead and fill it out and tell us what you thought about today's meeting. You can also go ahead and register for next month. TUG, where we'll have Lisa Trescott do another encore presentation of a TC25 session, and then we'll meet Celia Fryer from, I think, San Francisco. If you want to speak or have a topic that you're interested in hearing in, you can also fill out that survey. And then some TUGs coming up. There's the DataFam Live, which I mentioned earlier about the Exploring Agentic Analytics, the Newbies TUG, and then the CCC, which is the California Community College, not Civilian Corps, Conservation Corps. And to touch back, one thing I would recommend is actually to go to the user group sites and just like search for local user groups, so you actually can visit those. And they also have interesting topics. One thing that came today was about storytelling. So on the 28th, Zach Bowders is speaking at the Huntsville, which is a hybrid, so you can join virtually as well, on storytelling and templates. If you're in the Twin Cities, tomorrow they're meeting. Mike Cisneros is speaking on focus storytelling on a deadline. So always go check out the user group's website to find out other virtual or local user groups that you can go visit.
All right. And with that, we want to thank you. Thank you everyone for coming. Thanks to Jen and Rob for talking today. And yeah, we really hope you enjoyed today's session. Please sign up for the August session. It's going to be amazing as well. And yeah, thank you everyone, and we'll see you next month.